What's going on, guys? Welcome to Grind Time with the Fantasy Football Grinder here. Hey, I just wanted to get a video out today for everybody and wanted to talk about something that's really interesting this year. This is something that a lot of fantasy fans are going to talk about, for one, but for two, this is something a lot of people miss on. A lot of people miss on year two. Year two is a pivotal year for most players, okay? And I've heard some guys that are like big time analysts and stuff for the NFL, and their biggest thing with guys is, can they put together 3 seasons, 3 straight seasons. But this is that pivotal year. A lot of players, it can be a grueling season, because if you start off year one and you're the star, you're the stud, everybody wants to play with you, everybody wants to be on your team, and the next year you come out and you just go flat, everybody's like, hold up, I thought this was our guy. I thought we wanted this guy to be the guy. So what we're going to talk about today is these guys here that are year two guys. And what I really want to do is I want to get you guys ready for your drafts via talking about these guys that most people are not. They're not saying people are disregarding these guys, but some of these guys on this list are guys that people forgot about or people have already overlooked. And I think that maybe we need to hit the brakes on some people. Well, maybe we need to look at some of these guys. Maybe we need to look at some of these guys and say, man, are they really worth where they're going? And that's where we need to start at. So what I want to do, this episode is turn up, turn down year two players. And what I want you guys to do is to really look at these guys that I'm bringing up here and see if any of these guys are people that are on your radar. If they are on your radar, take a few minutes out to look into their history, and I'll be bringing a lot of this out to you guys. I'll do a lot of this research for you, but you want to know. You don't want to just say, okay, this guy knows what he's saying, I'm going to take his advice and run with it. Maybe there's something I missed, and if there's something I missed, you guys say, hey, dude, you're off track here. Let me show you. I have no bones with that. If you want to correct me, I'm cool with it. Like, I actually enjoy the debate of fantasy football. It's one of my favorite parts of fantasy football is the debate. Who is this guy, standing here behind this mic? Who is he supposed to be to tell everybody what to do? I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. I don't want to be over here telling people what to do. I want to encourage fans to do something different that fans have not done in the past, and that's research some of the guys that you really like. See if there's a trend. Does their team win if they are the driving force? Does their team lose if they're getting too many targets? Those are important factors, because that will tell you where a coach is going to go. If a coach looks at a guy, and I'm a coach, and I'll say I'm a coach, I go look at a guy and I say, well, man, he had 1,500 yards. The only problem is every time he went over 150 yards, we weren't giving our running backs the ball, and we were getting beat. We were getting slaughtered because we weren't slowing the game down. So they go out and get a running back. Well, then the red flag comes up. Okay, well, they're gonna start running more. We got to watch out for him. And I think that's where things happen with Keenan Allen a couple times, and a lot of people were really high on Keenan Allen because of years past. But a lot of people forgot to factor in Melvin Gordon's injury history and things like that. So that some people get burnt by grabbing Keenan Allen. We don't want to do that, guys. We don't want to get burnt using a high-end draft pick. That's something we don't want to do. Like, we want to make sure those rounds 1 through 4, you want to hit your studs, and you want to make sure that those guys are your guys. And if there's a guy that out there that you believe is much better than the guys that I promote or the guys that are on the draft kit, go ahead. If that's what you want to do, you go ahead and get them. But the only thing I want to warn you guys is this is a lot of research, and it's studying trends. It's more than just he put up 1,500 yards. It's a lot more than that. It's a very important factor for me is, how did they get those yards? Were these regularly earned, hard-fought yards that they will reproduce anytime, anywhere? Or did somebody, get their yards from 3 or 4 games? If you're, 3 or 4 games counted from your pretty much your entire season, that's a problem. That's a big problem. If you've got, 1,200 rushing yards and 650 of them came from 3 games, where's the rest? Where was the other 14 games out the season? Where did those games go? And so that's what you guys need to be focused on, because you don't know sometimes where those yards are coming from, and I want you guys to be aware of that. But anyways, guys, let's get started on this. Let's get started on breaking down these guys. These are a few guys that I may say turn down. These are a few guys I may say turn up. We don't know exactly how some of you guys have been used to seeing people talk about players. We're going to try to change the game a little bit with this. Tonight, Tuesday night, we're going to have a show for tonight. It will be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, sorry. And that it will be on West Coast Cowboys show. It'll be me and Coach Higgins. Coach Higgins is a really solid football coach. I'll let him go into his background, but he's a very, very good football coach, and he knows what he's talking about. He's dealt with defensive backs, wide receivers, different things like that. But you'll see tonight, if you show up on the show, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And every Tuesday, he's going to help. Actually, he's really the co-host, and unless he does, I don't know what all is going on there, but he is the co-host right now, and so it's going to be a lot of fun on Tuesday nights over there at West Coast Channel on Facebook. So you guys come and check it out. If you got some questions for us, be there to answer them, whatever you guys want to do. But just jump in, guys, and let's get started here. So first, we got 2 quarterbacks this year that are year 2 guys that I believe at least one is an impact player. And, it's probably going to be the one that most people probably say I wouldn't pick. But I do. I think he puts a factor in that is made Dak Prescott go into another world too. You'll see as we start talking. First off is Drew Lock. I love what Denver did with Drew Lock's targets, like what they did with his weapons. They added Jerry Jeudy out the draft. They already had Cortland Sutton and Fant. They added Fant last year. Fant was such a massive producer. And then you add in Melvin Gordon. I mean, dude, what else could you ask for? That's a really exciting cast, because to be honest with you, Jerry Jeudy could take over as that wide receiver 1. Do I think he does? I honestly do. I think he's a year 2 takeover. I don't think he's a year 1. I think Jerry Jeudy is a guy, maybe a hope and a prayer pick. Maybe he's a dart throw pick that you get later on, and you could potentially have yourself a wide receiver 1. But I do believe that he becomes a viable wide receiver 2, maybe at the end of the year. Definitely a wide receiver 3 that you could throw in and get you close to 10 points out of, because Jeudy will get some touchdowns. He's a really solid player, and I'm surprised he lasted as far as he did in the draft. That was one thing that I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe he made it that far in the draft. That's insane. But so you get all those people plugged in, and you have yourself a pretty solid supporting cast. Here's the only factor, though, that I want to warn you guys when you're talking about Drew Lock. The factor with Drew Lock is that he has a very small sample size. We've seen 6 games, really only 5, but we'll call it 6. But we've seen those games, and they only played one team there that was actually a real high-end team, and that was the Chiefs. But that was the last game of the season, guys. Very last game. So what do we know about Drew Lock? We know enough to know he can play. He's not garbage by any means. He can play. I know if you go ask Autograph fans, they're killing it right now. They're running them down. All my stuff in the back, that's all autograph material. That's all autograph stuff that I have. I have a ton of autograph stuff, and I watch a lot of this stuff off of that. Sometimes, man, the autograph world will show you some things crazy. But everybody's all over Drew Lock. I'm not sure I'm sold on it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I I would approach Drew Lock with caution. I would draft Drew Lock in the right round. If you give me Drew Lock after round 13 or 14, maybe. But that's not going to happen. You're going to see him fall off a whole lot sooner than that. And so I don't know. I mean, if you get him late, if your league undervalues Drew Lock and you see him falling and okay, there's X amount of quarterbacks up here, I know that I can get Drew Lock in the next round, skip that one more round and grab him, sure, go for it. But I don't like Drew Lock any sooner than round 13 at the end, maybe 14. 14 for sure, maybe 13, maybe the end of 13. But that's the best I would do for Drew Lock, because I don't think, guys, that I'm sold on this, and we haven't seen enough of him, teams actually going and game planning against him. What you've seen with Dak Prescott in year 2, you've seen year 1, 2016, Dak and Zeke went off against everybody, and everybody was like, oh my God, where did these two come from? Well, the fact is, nobody knew Dallas as the type of team at that moment to run the ball near as much with the way that Dak was doing it. They always had Romo, they always had Aikman, so you didn't have that run first, not really run first, but very high-end running quarterback. And so a lot of teams weren't ready for that. So when Dak steps in, everybody's having to adjust mid-season. And that's what threw teams off. So you see when they had a couple weeks and then they came out to play, they got beat. And, it is what it is. That was a close game. And then that a lot of that similar effect will happen this year with Lock. You'll see teams that were not ready for Lock last year that they will be ready for Lock this year. They've seen enough. They know where he wants to play, and people will address his weaknesses. His team's going to. I mean, he's on a team that's pretty decent. He's got a good supporting cast. You get Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon going, and that's just it's a terrible team for fantasy when it comes to running back. I think Sutton is a solid wide receiver too. But you keep in mind, guys, where you get him. Don't get him any sooner than round 5, round 6, if that, because you're spending too much capital on him at that point. You could use him as your second wide receiver if you get you a stud ace wide receiver in the first, second round. But outside of that, I wouldn't bother with Sutton. Outside of that, though, I mean, you look at his, Melvin Gordon's a possibility, maybe Philip Lindsay, but I don't trust either of those guys. I don't trust it. I think Gordon is going to take over as a starter, but what have they shown us? That there's no consistency. That's what they've shown us. Zero consistency at the running back position in Denver. So we don't have anything to go off of there. We don't have any type of big-time performance. We had Philip Lindsay, in 2018 had a great year, but that's it. Then the second year, everybody's pumping him up. Second year, and that's another thing. Pay attention to second-year shows, because guys like Philip Lindsay are guys that people were all over last year, and it was like, hold up, wait a minute, time out. Time out. You're still looking at a Royce Freeman back there that they were still sprinkling in. He was kind of banged up in his rookie year, and they were still sprinkling all that in. Let's take a step back. You've got Melvin Gordon there now. So I would say, if I wanted to draft anybody from Denver, the only two it would be is Cortland Sutton after round 6, maybe round 5. I would draft Jerry Jeudy towards the end, last 3 4 rounds of your draft, and Locke is about the same, last 3 to 5 rounds of the draft. I might grab Locke at 12, but highly doubtful. More or less 13, 14. That's all I would do with that situation. Those are those two guys. Those are second year. That's those two guys. With Jeudy and Sutton, they could make him or break him. If those two show up and they start showing out and competing against each other, it could be a really fun season for the Broncos. It could be a really fun season for Drew Lock to throw in Melvin Gordon on top of that. But if I knew that they would stay consistent with Melvin Gordon would be on my top 10 running backs immediately today He would be put right in there right now because I think Melvin Gordon is that talent. He's always been that talent. I mean, nobody's ever said Melvin Gordon sucks. And that's one other thing, you won't ever hear me say a player sucks. But I'm never gonna, I've never said that I didn't like Melvin Gordon. I'm not saying that he sucks now. What I am saying is he's in kind of a place where, it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird place, It's like the guy that's got 3 wives. Like, which one do you spend the most time with? Here you go. That's what you got right now. Is who spends the most time with who in this situation? We don't know. And so that's where I am fearful to touch that situation. Okay, so let's go on to the number 2 quarterback, the second year quarterback. It's Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is this is the one that I really like, and I'm typically a Cowboys fan, so to be honest with you, I hate the Giants, but I like Daniel Jones. I like the talent. I'm never gonna be biased, guys. That's not my thing. I don't do biased opinions. We're trying to win leagues. We're not trying to be cheerleaders. So Daniel Jones is a guy that I really like. And this is the thing. I did not like Jason Garrett as an offensive coach, as the head coach. I did not like him as the head coach of Dallas Cowboys. But when he was the offensive coordinator, they were always a top 5 offense. And, almost every season, they would be a top 5 offense. So now you throw him in there with Daniel Jones, another rookie quarterback for Jason Garrett to have a field day with, and guess what happens? And, the first 2 months of being there, I would say 2 months of work. Let's say 2 months of work. They've added Cam Fleming, used to be the Patriots offensive lineman, and went and drafted 3 offensive linemen, just back to back to back, second, third, fourth round. I mean, he's telling everybody what he's about to do. He's about to load up his offensive line. He's already got the compliment. He's got the Saquon, so he's got the monster in the backfield. I was been watching for that. That's one I've been watching for. I'm in a coin toss between Zeke and Saquon there because those 2 guys are so good. The only thing that always worries me is Saquon's injury, but that's a whole nother show. Daniel Jones, the thing that, interests me the most with Daniel Jones is that he was successful last year, but you add in a man like Garrett who could be, Garrett could do a lot of different things for Daniel Jones that most people aren't going to be able to do. He's going to go build an offensive line. He's going to go make Saquon a beast. He's going to go find receivers. Jason Garrett was also a quarterback, guys. You got to remember. So he's a quarterback coach to an extent. He knows what a quarterback position needs. He fulfills the needs. And that's how he stays in the game of coaching football, because he knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. And so, they've built that offensive line. I do have a little fear with Daniel Jones as of weapons outside of Barkley. You got Sterling Shepard, and you got another guy who we're going to talk about is Darius Slayton. Then outside of that, you have Golden Tate, and you have the tight end. And I just don't know that Evan Ingram is quite as much as we thought he was. I think that Evan Ingram could be. I just don't know. We haven't seen anything. We haven't seen anything to prove to us that Evan Ingram is going to be a monster. And I keep seeing him fly up draft board. Every year I'll see him fly up a draft board again. Look, I drafted him his rookie year. Was it 17? I drafted him his rookie year. He did nothing to help me. Or is it 18? I forget which are the two. 18. I drafted him his rookie year, and he helped me. But he wasn't so great that I couldn't do without. And I was kind of, it's always made me real leery of second year guys because, man, the next year he blows up off the board like he put up Gronk numbers, and he didn't. He didn't. I get that he's there and he doesn't have as many targets around him to be shared, but it's still, I believe that Darius Slayton will be an impact player this year, and I believe that if Daniel Jones can get in here with Garrett, and this is the one holdback with Jones, and this is what can make or break you if you pick him up. You know, picking up Jones, keep in mind, let me put it out there that this right here, this is a guy that you draft after the 7th or 8th round. Don't draft him any sooner. Draft him after the 7th or 8th round. If you're in a 2-quarterback league even, I still wouldn't target him early. You got to target him late as a backup if possible, because to be honest, you don't want second-year quarterbacks as your QB1. You know, unless it was Pat Mahomes, you know, really that would have been his 3rd year last year, but unless it's Pat Mahomes, that type of situation is a 1 in a million. Most of these guys are not guys that I trust automatically say, oh yeah, that's my number one. That's my number one quarterback. I'm going to take that guy and ride with him. No, I wouldn't do that, man. I would not trust that. So, guys, target him in the right rounds. Target him around 7 or 8. Maybe a little later, depending on the size of draft. You know, this is things you guys got to keep in mind, too. When you're taking advice from me or anybody else, I may be used to 12-team drafts. Somebody may be used to 10. So remember, this information is always going to be solely based off a 12-team draft. That's the best way to do it. It's the middle ground. But I want you guys to understand that with Daniel Jones, what you get is you get a quarterback that could easily become Aaron Rodgers. Okay? And that's freaking awesome. That sounds great. But he could also become Jay Cutler. So this is what you're going to get from Daniel Jones. If he becomes Jay Cutler and he can't throw the ball, if he can't hit his targets, the only thing he can seem to hit is defenders, you're going to be in a bind. If all he can do is throw interceptions like he did last year, he threw like 18 interceptions last year. I mean, you cannot do that. You can't throw that many interceptions. It's impossible to survive off of that. But that is going to be the fallback with any quarterback that has that heavy arm. They're going to throw some interceptions. That's just how it goes. I mean, you're not going to avoid that. Guys are going to throw picks. They're going to. It doesn't matter, especially young guys. And this is a second-year quarterback. So if you could get him in the right place, guys, I would love for you to get him, you know, 7th or 8th round. I'd really love for you to get him after the 10th. After the 10th, if he's still there after the 10th, then you're good. You grab your second quarterback, you're good. Take it to the bank. It'll be all right. And that's the type of guys, though, that you want. That's the quarterback I would go with. If I said if you ask me which of the youngest quarterbacks in the league right now, you know, 3 years or less, I would probably still say Daniel Jones would be there. Mahomes, this is his 4th, just to keep in mind, so anybody don't get stressed out. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is better than Mahomes. He's not that great. But he has the potential. He has the coaching around him. If Garrett can turn this guy into a producer, then you have a whole nother level from what you were at yesterday, you know. And so we'll definitely be watching him as the season progresses. That's one of the most interesting talents to me out of this whole situation right now. I really enjoy talking about him. He's really good. So I want to talk about one guy in particular, two guys that are tight ends. And these two tight ends are second-year guys that everybody knows. We got Fant, we got Hawkinson. With Fant, you know, here's the deal. Fant, his last few games of the season, that second half, he turned it up. He turned it up, and it's freaking awesome. I like Fant. I wouldn't mind you getting both of these second-year tight ends as your two. Number 1, number 2 tight ends. Get them both. Go ahead. I don't mind that. Fant is a guy that I really like for a lot of reasons because Fant can catch the ball. He's got sure hands. And like I said before, they have a lot of targets. So, but the thing is, those targets, Jerry, Judy, and Sutton, those are guys that are downfield guys. So there's not really that. You start looking at them, they have Tim Patrick. That's probably their best guy to come across the middle. And outside of that, it's Noah Fant. And Noah Fant can fake and go out. He's very fast. He can do some of the stuff that people wanted Evan Ingram to do. And so I would definitely go ahead and grab him as your number one tight end if you wanted to. There's a few options this year. You got Herndon. There's a few options. But I would not miss out on Fant because you can get him late, super cheap. He's the perfect one. The only holdback with Fant will be this one thing: pass protection, and that's one thing that it's not the worst problem to have. And I know it is a bad problem, but it's not the worst problem. You know, he could be a lot worse than that. If he was if he'd missed half the season from injury, we'd really be in, that would be a major problem. But for him to do this and be able to learn pass protection, that is something that can be taught. Everybody in that organization is quarterback friendly. They will teach him how to pass protect. So he'll be okay. And then you have Hawkinson. Hawkinson is the most curious of the two. To anybody doing fantasy football right now, nobody knows what to do with Hawkinson. And I'm going to tell you what I will do with Hawkinson. If I get Hawkinson, it'll be behind Fant. It'll be behind a Herndon. It'll be behind somebody that will guarantee me points. And Hawkinson will be sitting there until he can make it through 3 straight games with more than 10 points. I'm not asking the guy to drop Gronk numbers. He don't have to be Kelsey. But at least give you 3 solid straight games. I mean, that's the problem with Hawkinson. He's so good. We know the talent. We know it's there because we've seen it game 1. Week 1. And then all of a sudden, he's gone. He disappears. Where does he go? Nobody knows. Everybody's still wondering, what is the deal with Hawkinson and what do you do with him? And that's my answer to the question. If you want yourself a potential tight end 1 that could finish a top 5 tight end, maybe even a top 10 to 15 pass receiving yards guy, because of their team, because all they have is him and Galladay. But because of that right there, we don't know because he didn't put up the numbers. And what I would suggest is get him as late as possible. If you can load up wide receiver, running back, a quarterback, maybe a backup quarterback, and then get him as a backup tight end, then you win. But watch him. Make sure. I mean, don't let somebody just have him for free. Don't wait till the 16th round and then decide you're going to get him. You got to get him earlier than that. Your last 2 rounds got to be your defense and your kicker. But if you're around, if he's there like in round 12 through 14, grab him. It doesn't matter then. Grab him. And if you feel confident that, hey, the next guy I like is so far down, I'll go ahead and get Hawkinson, do that. But make sure that you don't grab him so early. A lot of guys have made that mistake with tight ends. I don't focus heavy on tight ends. I don't focus heavy on quarterback this year. Most years I do focus on quarterback, not this year. We're just too loaded down with quarterback this year that you can win without getting a quarterback in the first 5 rounds. You don't need a quarterback in the first 5 rounds. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. When you start looking at it this year, it makes no sense. There was years past when you had like 3 to 5 quarterbacks to pick from. Now they're making the entire league shift to quarterback. So once it's shifted like it has, now you're going to have guys like Hawkinson, and they're going to fall lower. Your quarterbacks that you normally would get, 5th round, 4th round, they're going in the 7th round, 8th round. And everybody knows that if they don't get their running backs and wide receivers, they're in a bind, okay? So we're going to beat these guys to this. We're going to teach you guys how to beat people from your league to the punch. We'll beat them to the punch and get who we want. Then we'll play chess. We don't play checkers. That's just how it is. So next up, guys, I want to talk about the second-year wide receivers. And this is where it's going to get really fun to watch. This is a good competition this year with second year wide receivers. We have Hardman, we have Darius Slayton, we have a handful of these guys. But first off, we're going to talk about Hardman. I really like Hardman. I really think that if you want yourself a guy that is going to be on your bench, potentially on your bench for a little while, but he could step in and play. If something happened and Watkins went down again, for how many seasons has Watkins made it without getting injured? You tell me. I don't know. But if Watkins gets hurt or anything happens to where Hardman has a competition with Watkins, I think Hardman wins this competition. Hardman could be another Tyreek Hill with the size. That's the difference there. He's a monster. He's a beast. So I like Hardman, guys. Get him as your third receiver, fourth receiver, and you'll be happy. You'll like Hardman. He's solid. Then we have Darius Slayton with the Giants. Now, this is another guy that he's very interesting because to start the season, he didn't have a whole lot of numbers. He didn't have a whole lot of anything really. He pushed and all. He just didn't have a lot of he didn't have a lot of attempts. He didn't have a whole lot of that, but what he did have towards the end of the year, as the year dragged on, he got 48 receptions, 740 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Here's the thing. He almost broke 1,000 yards in a rookie season with a mixed up quarterback situation because Eli was still there. And he did all this and probably he only got, I forget how many. It was right around 7 targets a game. That's it. And that's not anything. That's nothing. Your wide receiver ones get 12 to 15 targets a game. This guy didn't even get half of what a lot of your regular wide receiver ones get. And he still put up 740 yards and 8 touchdowns. Dude, that's enough right there to almost put in as a wide receiver 2 on most days. So I would trust getting Darius Slayton. Go ahead and grab him. He's definitely worth it. He's going to be worth a team that's going to focus heavy on quarterback play. So definitely grab him. And these next 2 guys are going to be 2 guys that are on the same team. They're second-year guys, and they're going to be competing. This competition, to me, is probably one of the most vital wide receiver competition. Not vital. It's one of the most interesting wide receiver competitions there is. Because if you start looking at the perspective of this team, how they've built this team this year, you know where their focus is, and it's going to be at the passing game, and it's going to be with the Cardinals. And the 2 that I'm talking about is Hakeem Butler and Keyshawn Johnson. This is the thing with these 2. I personally think Keyshawn Johnson is the better of the 2. Maybe not the better of the 2. I think Keyshawn Johnson has a better chance because of his lack of injury problems. He doesn't have a whole lot of injury problems. Hakeem Butler, on the other hand, is the best talent. He's the best talent, but he's always hurt. I mean, he was hurt in college and he's hurt here. Can Hakeem Butler stay healthy? That is our question. If Hakeem Butler can play one solid season, he's worth drafting. He's worth drafting in the last few rounds as your wide receiver 3. And I know this is repetitive, but guys, these are guys that you're not going to see on your boards you're not going to see them come up until late. And some of these are only guys that people in big leagues are going to see. So if you see Hakeem Butler, I would say, honestly, that's not wide receiver 3, more of a wide receiver 5, wide receiver 4 at the best, probably. That's where you want to look for a guy like Hakeem Butler, They're behind Nuke and Fitzgerald, so we know that, they're not going to get a ton of targets to start the season. So these aren't guys that I'm super excited about, but these are guys that really need to be watched because, guys, these guys are the future. And when you're talking Nuke and Fitzgerald, you're talking 2 guys that have played most of their career already. And that's not calling them old, lazy, nothing like that, but their career has pretty much hit the last little bit of what it's going to be, So, guys, when we talk about this, that's what I want y'all to understand. This is, we're talking about keeping an eye on Hakeem Butler and Keyshawn Johnson, because if one of them takes that starting role and they can open up for Kyler Murray as a slot man, you're talking about a potential wide receiver 3. Maybe you plug him into a flex position. Maybe you have somebody that you can run as a flex if you go heavy running back and you miss on some wide receivers. That's the type of situations you want to know about these guys for. And that's what's important. It's not that you couldn't, it's not that they can't be found anywhere else, but these guys are, They are guys that we want to be aware of, and I want you guys aware of these guys. I don't want you to miss guys and then be like, "Oh man, why didn't you tell me about this one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I tried to." So let's go to N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry is one of the guys that I actually like as a wide receiver too. This is probably one of the highest ranked second year guys for me out of the whole crew. I really think N'Keal Harry, now with Cam Newton, is going to be a lot better. And I know that there's a lot of people that would disagree. I get that. I get it. Cam Newton hasn't had great receivers, but also keep in mind, Cam Newton hasn't had great receivers. There's what great receiver has he ever had on his team? The best receiver everybody can say is Funchess. Funchess has done nothing. Funchess hasn't been on the Panthers in years and still has done nothing. So he has never had greatness around him. You gotta remember that. And so what do I think? I think N'Keal Harry gets a boost from Cam Newton, and I do think that he fits the game of Cam Newton, because he's able to make that crossing route. He's able to catch that 50-50 ball that nobody else there can catch. He's able to do a little bit of everything, and that's what it's going to take to be Cam's number one receiver. You're not going to be able to be typical. You're not going to be prototypical corner. You're not going to be prototypical X. You're going to be the guy that can fake this way and go the next. You're going to be the guy that can do a million different things in one trip and nobody be able to catch up to you at the same hand. N'Keal Harry is one of the fastest guys you're going to see out of this group. So, I mean, guys, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see N'Keal Harry finally get a season together, and he was a second-year guy. Remember when we're talking receivers, running backs, all these guys, first-year guys out the gate are always having – all these guys have different little hamstring injuries. That just almost always happens with younger rookies and things like that. Second-year guys typically kind of bounce back from that. They know what to do. Their body's adjusted. They have time in the offseason. They know, okay, guys, I went through this last year. I'm not doing this again. I'm going to play this year. And also, a lot of these guys are getting down to, if they perform this year, next year they get money. Why wouldn't I? If I'm a second-year, third-year guy, this is the most critical time of my career. I should not even have to be asked to play hard, because this is the way that I earn the big dollar contract. This is how you win the big dollar prize. You won't win the big dollar prize by showing up and getting hurt. So a lot of these guys are going to be figuring it out. Guys, always keep in mind, some guys, they cannot help the injury game, but some guys are smart enough to say, hey, what do I got to do? And I think that's what you're getting from Harry this year. I think that Harry with Cam Newton is probably one of the biggest things I've seen this offseason that I'm excited most about. So definitely N'Keal Harry, wide receiver 2. If you can get him anywhere around, say, round 6 or 7, right before you get your quarterback, you can get him as your wide receiver 2 and still have your 3 to 4 running backs. That would be the ticket with somebody like N'Keal Harry. And if you got him, you might be able to get him later. So this is why, when it comes to N'Keal Harry, please keep an eye that he may be a guy that you can reach as a wide receiver 3. Do not overextend to get him. That's another thing. Just because I see that, I'm used to playing in different leagues. You're used to playing in different leagues. A lot of the people I play in leagues with are big leagues, and these guys are going to, they're like freaking sharks. They're going to go after everything. But I want you guys to be ready in case somebody in your league misses him, and you can go get him. You can go get him as your wide receiver 3. Awesome. Freaking awesome. Go get him as a wide receiver 4 if you can. That'd be even better. That'd be a ridiculous team. But just know where he's at. Cue him up. Make sure you know, okay, he's got X amount of people next. And just keep an eye on that guy. Maybe you can get him in the 10th round. I don't know. I doubt it, but you might could. And if you do, that's what you do. That's the same thing with any of these other guys, man. Just because I say they're worth this value doesn't mean that's the only value you can get them. You can get them for cheaper, which is great. If you can get them cheaper, get them cheaper, If I can pay 50 cents for gas, why would I go pay $2 across the street? Doesn't make any sense. Okay. So let's go with the last two wide receivers here on this list, and one of them's gonna be the man this is my favorite receiver that I've seen come out of college in a while, and I love his work ethic. I love that he's grinding, and this is why he's hurt, because he's got this work ethic that's out of this world, and that's Deebo Samuel. I'm telling you, I don't think there's a receiver in the game right now outworking this guy. I really don't. It might be, but I haven't seen one. All I see is Deebo. I keep up with Deebo and see all the time. All this dude does is work out, work out, work out. He's constantly on the move and constantly doing good things. So I'm upset that he's hurt, but it doesn't even surprise me that he has overworked himself till he got hurt. He's such a good receiver to add to that. So this is a guy, man, that here's what's going to happen with him. He's going to be down for 3 weeks. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys. From a little bit of the research I've done and looking at their schedule, more than likely with Deebo Samuel, you're not going to see him for weeks 1 through 3. More than likely, you will miss out on him. So you're not going to be able to get him as your wide receiver 2, which that was the target originally. That was my target for him, was wide receiver 2. You know, I'm having to change everything up. Anything I wrote down, any kind of draft kits, I'm having to change it all because he was a wide receiver 2 in my book, maybe wide receiver 1 after last year. And especially when you throw in Kittle being healthy, because once Kittle came back healthy, Deebo's numbers went up because everybody went to Kittle. Everybody's going to go double up on Kittle, and they just leave Deebo over here just burning people. Deebo had 3 rushing touchdowns to add on top of everything else. I mean, how do you guard this guy, you know? And so what I want you guys to do is, you know, that the risk definitely the reward definitely outweighs the risk in this situation. You will be rewarded by grabbing Deebo. Now, do you get Deebo later? Yes. If you can, do not go and grab Deebo so early that you can't compensate. That's crazy. Just don't freaking do it. Don't grab Deebo way too early. It'll never make sense, okay? So, when it comes to Deebo, what you want to do is try to get him as late as possible as maybe your wide receiver 4, maybe 3. It just depends on how high up that means for you. Don't get him before round 8. Because what's going to end up happening is, since he's going to be out these 1 to 3 weeks, you're going to see a ton of stories. One's going to say, yeah, he's coming. One's going to say, no, he might be out 6 weeks. People are going to start getting nervous. And when week 1 comes around and they get this notification, Deebo Samuel's out, send the trade. Send the trade right then and there. Send the trade, go get him. Because somebody's going to get nervous. They're going to be, they probably are going to overpay is what's going to happen. And then they're going to get really nervous because that's their best second wide receiver on the team, and everybody else is garbage in their book. You know, maybe that's how they're thinking. I don't know, but that's what will end up happening, and that's when you make your trade and you destroy people. You end up with Deebo on your bench and trade whoever for him. You know, trade defense for him or something. Just do something. But you will win by doing that. And I do believe that I'm not the type to just say, I'll skip this and go trade. No, but trades matter. And that's another quarter of your fantasy knowledge that you need to know. You need to know draft, trade, management, and you also need to do a lot of waiver wire homework if you're doing a year-long season. So that's your 4 parts to everything fantasy that will make you a superstar in any league you play in. Okay, and the last of the receivers is DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is going to be a beast. If anybody's better than Deebo, it will be DK. And I love talking about these two. I don't know what it is. These guys are beasts, man. DK finished the season 58 receptions, 900 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And he started off, he left off in the playoffs, their one game that they won against Philadelphia. He was 7 receptions out of 9 targets, 160 yards on a touchdown. This is telling you what's going to happen here with Metcalf. Metcalf is going to be the wide receiver 1. He came into his own towards the end of the year. This is what happens with wide receiver 2s. This is where you need to know the history matters, because he came into his own. Ever since coming into his own, that's it. It's game over. DK is going to be a guy that Russell Wilson trusts fully. So DK is a guy. That's another guy that I would take either of those guys as my wide receiver 2 and be happy and laughing all the way to the bank, because they will win. They will win leagues for you. So outside of that, we have a couple of running backs. We won't go like massively in depth, but let's do it because these are going to be really important targets. I mean, these are some, to me, more important than the quarterback sometimes. So first off, you've got David Montgomery. And David Montgomery, I was extremely excited about David Montgomery. And then David Montgomery got to the league, and it looked like Matt Nagy didn't understand the simple rules of engagement. Like, something went off track, and Matt Nagy lost his mind. Now, I don't know why. I'm still, to this day, I'm lost. I'm lost. When you get a guy with David Montgomery's talent, you don't just say, okay, we're just going to start throwing the ball to Cohen. That makes absolutely no sense. I get that the coach wants to be, I know that Nagy's been one of those creative types, and he always wants to create content. He wants to create things that nobody else can repeat. But the only thing you created the drop leader of the league. That's not good. You cannot do that. That's not okay. And to be such a great coach, because Matt Nagy's a great coach. And there's no denying that the man is, deserves to be considered a top 5 coach. He does. He does. But the problem is, when you see Cohen, don't be hard-headed and say, well, that's my game plan. We're going to figure it out. We'll just run it till we do. No, stop giving Cohen the ball. Let Montgomery run the ball and be done with it. So Montgomery swears that this year he is going to light it up. Does Montgomery light it up? I hope so. Do I trust Montgomery right now? No, not at all. I don't trust it at all. We will see. As this preseason rolls along, we'll see. I know that I've had some buddies of mine that are Bears fans, and they're like, man, he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. You got to trust it. I will trust it whenever I see David Montgomery as my RB4, but I'm not going to trust it if David Montgomery is going to be my RB2 that I'm picking up in the 4th round. So, guys, also another thing to keep in mind, just because I say no, don't mean they're not. There's never a place for them. There is. That's the place for Montgomery right now. He's an RB4 that you're going to get way late. And if you're not getting him way late, don't even worry about it. Just, who cares? Cut your losses. And the next rookie running back that I want to talk about is another guy that's pretty interesting this year, which is Miles Sanders. Here's the thing that is crazy about Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders actually finished the season with some really great, he has really great numbers to finish the season. He was pretty high up there on, he was pushing 1,000 yards, but he didn't quite get it. The thing is, this is the craziest thing. He didn't quite get there. And the most carries, this is not an average, the most carries he had all season long was 17. That's it. And that was one game, that was in one isolated incident. He never came over 12 the rest of the season. Never touched the ball more than 12 times, minus his 17-touch game. Now, here's the thing with it, is that it's a lot like Montgomery. Here we go. Peterson. Great coach, great mind, probably not the best when it comes to a running back situation. He's probably not going to make his running backs the studs of the league. It's probably going to be an overall spread out offense, a lot like Belichick with New England. That's what you're going to get with some of these guys. Not that they're not bad coaches, but this is what they do. I mean, they just spread the ball. They use whatever they can, but they win by whatever means necessary. That's their theory. But what you're getting here with Peterson and Sanders, a lot of people are high on Sanders, and I want to be high on Sanders. I'm higher on Sanders than I am on Montgomery, if I can put it that way. I am higher on Sanders than Montgomery, But guys, it comes with a warning, and that warning label is watch what you pay for, because when you go and get Miles Sanders and he's your RB1, you're in trouble. You don't want him as your RB1. Maybe RB2, and it would depend on how bad somebody needed, a wide receiver or something before I may even trade for him, But right now, I would not get Miles Sanders as my RB1. He's going off of boards early, like second round in some leagues. I don't want Sanders in the second round. I want Sanders. If you get down to that situation where Todd Gurley's gone, David Johnson's gone, Fournette's gone, and you're just staring at Miles Sanders, and you have to get him as your RB2, I guess that would be the only situation where he would be my RB2. So, I'm torn with him, man. I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't. It's not really worth the fight. It's not. Well, let's talk about Singletary. Singletary is another guy that I'm actually a massive fan of. I hate that they went and got Zach Moss, but I don't think that's a major factor, guys. I started looking at his stats, and he didn't have RB1 stats, but he had good numbers, good enough for me to look at Singletary as an RB2. He falls down on boards to the third and fourth rounds. So if you pick up Singletary as your RB2 or RB3, oh man, you're happy. You got to be happy if you can get Singletary that late. So I would say target him fourth. If you see him at the third and you're at the end, get him. But if not, I would go for Singletary in the fourth round and later as your RB3. But, he finished the season 151 carries, 775 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. That's not bad, man. He got 41 targets, 29 receptions for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's what you get. You get 1,000 yards combined from a guy who didn't even play almost the entire beginning of the season. He never even got on the field for the beginning of the season, guys. And now you don't have Frank Gore there to challenge him, really. So I would definitely take Singletary as my RB2. More or less, my goal would be RB3. If you could get him as your RB3, you're winning. So he's an RB3 target, and it's a guy I wouldn't be, believe me, I wouldn't be mad if that's who I ended up with. It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. And last, we're going to talk about the one guy that's a second-year guy that is worth every penny for what he's getting, where he's getting drafted. He's actually should be valued higher than where he's at, in my opinion. And I value him higher, but most people don't, and that's okay. It's Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs easily proved to everybody last year that John Gruden is looking for an RB1. He's not looking for a guy to fill in. He's used guys to fill in over the last 2 years. He's not looking for that. Gruden wants a guy that can come in, grind it out every day, and be a beast. And that's what Josh Jacobs is going to give you. Josh Jacobs is going to give you a guy that wants to come in and be the stud, and that's where he's going to be. And this is a guy that I would definitely take as my RB1. If all those guys, the Zekes and the Saquons are gone, and you're standing there looking at him, you might as well get him. You better get him, to be honest with you. If he's sitting there at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second, and you haven't snatched him up, you need to wake up, because he's going to be the last thing that you're going to get that has RB1 potential, top 5 potential. The rest of your players, you're kind of winging it and hoping on praying that something good happens. With Jacobs, I know some people, he kind of got hurt last year. He got hurt a little bit. That's fine, but it wasn't a major injury. There was no major, he didn't tear an ACL. He didn't do anything crazy. He just had some shoulder issues, and he played through the majority of it up until their season became pretty much null and void. Then Gruden started pulling him. So, guys, you got to keep that in mind. If the season had been competitive, Jacobs would have never got taken off the field. Gruden would have let him play, and he would have played because he's already said he wanted to play. So that's something to keep in mind, guys. And I just want to let you, let you know that when you're talking about somebody like Josh Jacobs, you're talking about a guy he's going to get 250 carries a season. That's about where he's going to sit. He's going to sit about 12 to 1,500 yards, not 15, 12 to 1,300 yards a year. But he can catch the ball. He can catch the ball. It's just a matter of getting a little practice there, and it won't take him long to figure that out. But he's a solid player. So Jacobs is the only guy that I think out of this entire episode would be a first rounder, in my opinion. The other guys are guys that are later round guys. It's kind of a mixture there of your mid to late rounds. But guys, the number one thing that I wanted to bring this up for is you guys pay attention with the second year guys. The second year guys have this weird potential, and this happens every year, and everybody gets thrown off by it, or they get left. You get left, and you're standing there looking at you go back and look at your draft, from your league. I've done this before, where I go back and look at the draft, and I'm like, dude, how did I miss on that many guys? Like, how did these guys get this one in the 6th, 7th round? Where did that come from? And it's guys that they just picked up, maybe auto draft picked it up for them. They just drafted 3 or 4 players. Somebody auto picked the rest. It's like, how did you auto pick 7 studs? But that's all second year guys. That's what you're going to get here. So guys, pay attention. The second year guys are the guys that make or break your season. So do I trust the quarterbacks? Maybe Daniel Jones. Maybe Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, then Drew Lock. And I wouldn't touch them, very early. Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf. Those are 2 that they're must-haves on my teams. I would love to have either of those guys. And I think right now with Samuels being hurt, you actually get him cheaper and you get him at a super, super good advantage. So, and then as far as, Fan Hawkinson, they're good. They're good tight ends to fill in a spot of need. And when it comes to running backs, probably your best bet is Jacobs. Your best bet's going to be Jacobs. We need to monitor Montgomery because he has the talent. It's just a matter of carries. So, but guys, thank you for watching. This was year 2, turn up, turn down for grind time. And we'll be live tonight. And I forget the time difference here. Sorry, you have to excuse me for that. We'll be live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on West Coast Cowboys channel. Come check us out, ask some questions. We'll be doing live shows on Tuesday nights for a little while, me and Coach Higgins and West Coast, and we'll see how it goes from there. You guys have any questions, just jump on. Have a good day.